The Minnesota Vikings had an interesting 2022 draft class. Like, let's be real. It was, there was some good, there was some bad, there was some in the middle, and there was definitely some bad. But here we go. We'll talk about it. As a Vikings fan, I got to say, I know the Rick Spielman days, there's just years that just don't seem to pan out. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's first draft class with the Vikings. I'm not giving up hope, but it definitely didn't go their way in a lot of different ways. And the first way it didn't go their way was Lewis Cine, who basically, like compound fracture, what was it, I think against the Saints there, wasn't great. So I played in a total of 3 games, mainly on special teams, played a couple of defensive snaps, literally only a couple, but was placed on IR. And I do think it's something that, it's tough. Lewis Cine is a really good safety. I think he's going to be a really good player in the NFL, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's injuries. It just happens. So I think that's something that it is what it is, and hopefully he comes back in year 2 and is ready to go. Then in the second round, yes, the Vikings selected Andrew Booth Jr., the corner coming up out of Clemson. Played in a total of 6 games, had 1 start, also had 12 total tackles. Got kind of picked on against the Dallas Cowboys, and then after that he was out for the rest of the season. So dealt with injuries and the end of the year with a 45.3 PFF grade. The thing is I think there's a lot of things to build on with Andrew Booth Jr. If he could just stay healthy. That's just the biggest thing with Andrew Booth Jr. I'm hoping that he'll be back next year. He'll be ready to go, because I do think that the Vikings will need a serious need at corner. So then still in the second round, Ed Ingram, the guard out of LSU, played pretty much every single play. Like, it was kind of frustrating. Over 1,100 snaps for the former LSU product. Also had 4 penalties, allowed 11 sacks, and a 57.1 PFF grade, and stepped on Kirk Cousins at least 3 times. It was kind of rough for Ed Ingram. Kind of a trial by fire type situation, but overall I'm hoping he comes back in year 2 and does compete. I don't think you hand him the starting right guard spot in any capacity. I think the Vikings, when you allow this many pressures, and they are not being allowed from Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, you need to fix some things on the interior offensive line, and it starts with Garrett Bradbury, it starts with Ed Ingram, and then also Ezra Cleveland as well. In the third round, the Vikings selected Brian Asamoah, the linebacker out of Oklahoma, the heat-seeking missiles, we called him. 16 total games for him, didn't start, but he did have 17 tackles, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery against the Giants. There was a week 16 or something like that, and ended the year with a 78.8 PFF grade. It astonishes me that him and Asezi Otomehu, who we'll get into in a second, they literally didn't play any snaps on defense against the Giants in the playoffs. Like, it astonishes me. You got arguably your 2 best defensive building pieces that don't play a single snap. That's why Donatello had to go, and as we're making this video, probably we'll get the Vikings will bring in another defensive coordinator. So yes, Ed Donatello, it is what it is there, putting the players in their positions. I think Brian Asamoah is the future for the Vikings at middle linebacker. I think he's a guy flies sideline to sideline. He's lightning quick. I think literally his draft profile last year was see ball, get ball linebacker. Like, yeah, this man, he takes very little time to react, and just goes and gets it. I absolutely love it. Then later on in the 4th round, the Vikings traded up for Caleb Evans, the cornerback out of Missouri. Played in 10 total games, had a couple of starts, 23 total tackles, as well as a couple of pass breakups. Did register overall a 47.2 PFF grade, but there were games he stepped up. Had a lot of concussions this year, I think at least 3, so hopefully he can get that figured out, and he's good to go for next season, but he's a really good player that I really think will find a long-term home with the Vikings for a long time. Also in the 5th round, or later on in the 5th round, the Vikings selected Asezi Otomehu, the defensive end coming up out of Minnesota at number 165. Played in 5 total games, had 5 tackles, had a 62.6 PFF grade. You just saw, like, ever since he started playing against, I think it was the Giants, like after that, like they just started giving him more snaps. He made the most of it and started making plays for the Vikings. So he definitely needs to be at least a rotational piece for the Vikings, whether it's at D tackle or D end. I think he's going to be a really good building piece for the Vikings for a long time. So also in the 5th round, 4 picks later, the Vikings selected Ty Chandler, the running back out of North Carolina. Finished the year with playing in 3 games. Dealt with, I believe it was either a hand or a finger injury. I can't remember off the top of my head, but had 6 carries for 20 yards against the Chicago Bears. I think because of him, and then also, yes, Kenny Nwangu, I think those 2 guys are going to be the future of the Vikings at the running back position. So I'm excited. I definitely think that there's some good things to build on there. And then in the 6th round, the Vikings selected Vidarian Lowe with the 184th pick, the tackle coming up out of Illinois. The thing about Vidarian Lowe is I think he's going to be a player that at the very least is a very good backup tackle in the NFL. I think, you come in here and really only play against the Bears. It is what it is there, but I'm excited for Vidarian Lowe, excuse me. I can't talk today, but I think he's a good solid building piece, at least as a backup tackle if Blake Brandel doesn't exactly stick around. So at the very least, a very good backup tackle there for the Vikings. And then also in the 6th round, with the 191st overall selection, the Vikings selected Jalen Nailor, the wide receiver coming up out of Michigan State. 9 catches, 179 yards, and a touchdown. Mainly played on special teams. That's where he played in the vast majority for those 15, 16 games. Had 4 total tackles there. But I'm really excited about Jalen Nailor. I think he's going to be a solid building piece for the Vikings for a long time. You got to realize, the guys behind Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, and the list goes on. But when you saw when he got a little bit of playing time, he could make plays for the Vikings, and I think that's definitely something that we can expect moving forward. Then in the 7th round, the Vikings selected tight end Nick Muse coming up, out of South Carolina. That's 227 overall. He played in 10 games, mainly on all on special teams, and was called up and put down to the practice squad a couple of times. So, all in all, to run through the grades here, Lewis Cine, C+. I think hopefully he comes back in year 2 and shows the Vikings a little something. Could we have seen the last of Harrison Smith? I don't know. We'll have to see overall, but I give it a C+. For Lewis Cine. I give it a C for Andrew Booth Jr. because I was expecting big things out of him this year. Does concern me, all of the injury bugs and everything, and then also getting to play the Cowboys, and it was kind of a deer in the headlights type situation, so we'll see what happens there. Ed Ingram, again, C+. This interior offensive line was a huge Achilles heel for the Vikings, and Ed Ingram definitely had he's going to share his blame and all that, but overall, I think the Vikings, they may have reached for Ed Ingram a little bit, but at the end of the day, we'll see what he does in year 2. And then Brian Asamoah, I give him a B+ here. I really like it. Heck, I'll give him an A. I really like Brian Asamoah. I think he's going to be the future for the Vikings at middle linebacker and definitely a solid building piece. Caleb Evans, B+ here. I think he's going to be a solid building piece as well if he can get those concussions figured out, and we'll be all good to go there. Esezime Otomehu, also a B+. I'm really excited about him. These 3 picks here for the Vikings, really solid for their defense. I think are going to be solid building pieces. At the very least, Esezime Otomehu is going to be a guy that is just a rotational player, but he's a very good rotational player. Ty Chandler, I'll give it a B. I know he didn't get a lot of playing time this year, but I do think moving forward, he's going to be the future for the Vikings at the running back position. Vidarian Lowe, C+, B. Again, backup tackle that I think will give the Vikings a lot of good snaps when they need a guy just to come in for a couple of reps. Jalen Nailor, I actually give this one an A. I'm a huge fan of Jalen Nailor. Again, didn't get a lot of opportunities this last year, but when he did, he absolutely flashed. I'm excited. I'm going to say it. I think he could be a Stephon Diggs type player if he continues to work, if he continues to develop and do his thing there, because I do think he's a big play guy waiting to happen there. And then Nick Muse, C+. I do think that he's a guy that as a backup tight end in the NFL, the Vikings traded for TJ Hawkinson obviously this last year, so he might not get a ton of run, but I think he'll be a solid blocking tight end and a solid option receiving out of the backfield as well when they do need him. So overall, I give this draft class, I have to give it a C+ because there's a lot of things here with Lewis Cine, Andrew Booth Jr., Ed Ingram, like your first 3 picks there. You're kind of left up wanting more if you ask me. So after that, yes, you have 3 great picks in Asamoah, Evans, and Otomehu. But after that, we'll see how the rest of these guys pan out. So I give it a C+, B-ish is kind of how I think about this draft class. But again, it's early. It's only the first year going through things. And next year, you probably could see, 5 defensive pieces here for the Vikings that all get playing time. So definitely going to be something that's interesting. But that's it. That's our grading of the Minnesota Vikings 2022 rookie class or draft class. Make sure you guys like and subscribe down below. Leave a like and a comment. It helps people find the show. We greatly appreciate all the support that we've gotten and continue to get. You guys are all truthfully awesome. We love every single one of you. Down in the description below, you'll find all of our social media platforms. So give us a like and a follow there. Also remember to give us a listen and sub on iTunes. And finally, if you have anything else you'd like us to cover, send us an email at thesportsbp@yahoo.com or put it in the comment section down below. We would love to cover it. But let us know what you guys think about our grades for the Minnesota Vikings 2022 rookie draft class.